This is Mepo and the Golden Bird. Long ago, in the days when the world was still full of wonder and strange adventures waited along every road, there wandered a young boy named Mepo. Mepo was not a prince, nor did he seek riches or glory. He walked the roads simply to see the world, to gather wisdom where he could, and, when the chance appeared, to help those in need. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Mepo followed a winding path down into a quiet valley. There stood a grand marble house beside a carefully tended and lush garden. In the very center of the garden grew the most remarkable tree Mepo had ever seen. Upon its branches hung apples that shone like polished gold. And beside the tree stood an old man in rich garments. Yet the old man who owned the house did not admire the tree with joy. Instead, he stood beneath it with a troubled look upon his face, and a finger resting thoughtfully upon his chin. Mepo greeted him politely. "Good morning. Your tree is very beautiful. Why do you look so worried?" The old man sighed deeply and pointed toward the shining fruit. "Every night," he said, "one of my golden apples disappears. Something comes in the darkness and steals it away. I have asked people in the town to help me catch the thief, but no one has succeeded." Nearby sat two strangers resting in the shade of the tree. "These men tried before you arrived," the old man continued. The first stranger shrugged and said, "I meant to stay awake, but the night grew long." The second shook his head. "I heard wings beating in the darkness, but whatever it was moved too quickly for me to see." The old man sighed once more. "I fear the thief is no ordinary creature." Mepo studied the shining apple thoughtfully. "If you wish," he said, "I will watch tonight." So that evening, Mepo sat beneath the golden tree as the valley slowly grew quiet. The crickets began their song, and the moon rose gently into the sky. Hours passed. At last, just as Mepo's eyes began to grow heavy, a brilliant flash swept across the darkness. Down from the night sky glided a magnificent bird. Its feathers glimmered like sunlight, and every movement glistened as though it carried the dawn upon its wings. The bird swooped down and plucked a single golden apple from the branches with its talons. Mepo sprang up at once and reached for it. But the bird beat its shining wings and soared back into the night before he could catch it. As it vanished among the stars, a single golden feather drifted slowly to the ground. Mepo picked it up. Even in the pale moonlight, it glowed warmly. The next morning, he showed the feather to the old man. The old man stared at it in wonder. "If one feather shines like this," he said, "then the bird itself must be beyond price." He thought for a moment and called the other two men in. "I will gladly reward whoever can find me this golden bird and bring it back to me." So Mepo and the two others set out along the road the golden bird had taken. Mepo took his time, but the other two rushed ahead, wanting the reward for themselves. The pair traveled through the forest and over hills until at last they came to a quiet clearing. And there stood a fox. "I know what you seek," said the fox. "Up ahead is a fork in the road. Be sure to take the left path, as the right path will lead you to a town that is celebrating the harvest. If you go there, you will surely want to stay for the festivities." The two men laughed to themselves and continued onward. After a while, they came upon a fork in the road, just as the fox had said. They were curious about the celebrations and took the road to the right. When they reached the town, they were caught up in the merrymaking and soon forgot about their task. Meanwhile, Mepo traveled through forests and over hills, until at last he came to a quiet clearing. And there, sitting calmly in the middle of the road, as though it had been waiting for him all along, was the fox. The fox looked up and spoke. "You are searching for the golden bird." "That is true," said Mepo. Again, the fox warned Mepo about the fork in the road and to take the path on the left. On that road will be a quiet inn where he can lodge for the night. Mepo thanked the fox and continued onward. After a short while, he came upon the fork and, without hesitation, continued toward the left. There he found the inn and stayed there for the night. The next morning, just as he left the inn, and when it was no longer in sight, the fox appeared again. "You did well to listen to me. The bird you seek is kept in a castle far from here," the fox continued. "It sits inside a wooden cage, though beside it stands a beautiful golden cage." The fox fixed its bright eyes on Mepo. "If you reach the bird, remember this. Take the wooden cage. Do not touch the golden one." Mepo thanked the fox and continued on his journey. After many miles, he arrived at a tall castle late at night. Its gates stood open, and the guards were soundly asleep. Inside the castle, he found a bright chamber where the golden bird rested quietly inside a plain wooden cage. Beside it stood a magnificent golden cage set with glittering jewels. Mepo paused. "Surely a beautiful bird such as this belongs in a golden cage," he thought. So he reached out to take it. But the moment his hand touched the golden cage, the bird began squawking, and the castle awoke with commotion. Guards rushed in from every direction and seized Mepo and brought him down to the dungeons. In the morning, Mepo was brought before the ruler of those lands. "You tried to steal my golden bird," said the ruler sternly. Mepo bowed his head. "I wish to capture it for a man whose golden apples it steals." The ruler thought for a moment. "The bird is valuable," he said slowly. "But there is something even more valuable to me." He pointed toward distant mountains. "In another land lives a golden horse whose coat glitters in the sun and is the fastest in the land. No other horse can outrun it. If you bring me that horse, you may take my golden bird." So Mepo set out once more. As he left the castle gates, the fox appeared again beside the road. "You did not follow my advice," said the fox calmly. Mepo nodded. "You are right." The fox flicked its tail. "The golden horse stands in another castle stable. Beside it are 2 saddles. Take the plain leather one. Do not touch the golden saddle." Mepo thanked the fox and travelled on. After many days, he reached the second castle. In its stable stood the magnificent golden horse. "Hello there! What a splendid creature you are!" Mepo said, bowing slightly to the horse. The horse neighed in approval and softened to the boy. Beside it lay 2 saddles. One was simple leather. The other gleamed brightly with gold. Mepo hesitated. "Surely a beautiful horse such as this deserves the golden saddle," he thought. So he placed it upon the horse's back. At once, the horse reared up and began loudly crying out. Horns sounded throughout the castle, and guards rushed in to seize him. Mepo was immediately taken into the dungeon. The next morning, Mepo was brought before the lord of the castle. "You wish to take my golden horse, and nearly managed it," he said. "But I desire something even more valuable." He pointed out the window into the distance. "Beyond my lands lives a princess whose beauty is unimaginable. Bring her to me, and the horse will be yours." So Mepo was released and headed in the direction of the princess. No sooner did the castle leave his sight, he met the fox once more. "You still struggle to listen," the fox said gently. Mepo smiled. "Yes, I suppose I do." The fox flicked its tail. "When you reach the princess, wake her quietly and tell her you were sent by her brother, the prince. She will leave with you willingly, but do not let her say goodbye to her parents." Mepo nodded. "Sit upon my tail, and I will bring you to the castle." Mepo did as he was told, and sat on the fox's tail, and it immediately took off. And though the journey would have taken many days on foot, before many hours had passed, Mepo found himself beneath the princess's tower. Mepo thanked the fox and crept into her room while the castle slept, and gently woke her up. He told her that her brother had sent him, and for her to follow him. Just as the fox said, she did so willingly, but begged Mepo to let her say goodbye to her parents. When Mepo wouldn't let her, she began to cry. Unable to bear seeing the princess cry, he allowed her to say goodbye to her parents. And as soon as she entered their chambers, and when she kissed them goodbye, the king and queen awoke and sounded the alarm, which awoke the entire castle. Mepo was apprehended immediately and taken to the dungeon. The next morning, he was brought before the king. "For the crime of kidnapping the princess on the lie that my son sent you, you are sentenced to death," the king exclaimed. "But, as you are a young boy, and I am merciful, I will give you one chance to live." He brought Mepo to the balcony and gestured towards the mountain outside. "Every morning, I wish to see the sunrise, but this mountain blocks my view. If you can remove it for me before the dawn breaks tomorrow, then I will let you live, and let you take my daughter to be married to the Lord who sent you." Mepo had no choice but to agree, and as he left the castle towards the mountain, he met the fox on the road. "I do not know why I should keep helping you. Every time you do not listen." Mepo lowered his eyes apologetically. "Still, you are a kind soul, so I will help you one more time. Go and rest by that tree. I will complete the task for you." Mepo did as he was told, and the fox set to task. By the next morning, the king awoke to the glimmer of the sunrise, and to his amazement, the mountain was gone. The king kept his word and allowed Mepo to leave with the princess. He brought the princess safely away and delivered her to the lord of the second castle. In return, the lord gladly gave him the shining golden horse. But that very night, as Mepo stopped along the road to feed the horse, he heard footsteps behind him. The princess had quietly slipped out of the castle and followed him. "You treated me kindly, and I do not wish to marry that lord," she said. "I would much rather travel with you." Mepo scarcely knew what to say, but he was glad of her company. So together they continued onward. Soon they returned to the first castle. He turned over the golden horse to the ruler and received the golden bird in return. Then, together with the princess and the golden bird, Mepo began the journey back to the old man, ready to complete the task that he had promised. Later that evening, as Mepo and the princess walked along the forest road carrying the bird's cage, he heard hooves behind him. The golden horse had broken free from its stable and came running after them. Mepo could scarcely believe his eyes, but the horse came up to nuzzle him. The creature, too, had grown fond of the kind little boy. So Mepo continued through the mountains with the golden bird, the golden horse, and the princess. Along the road once more sat the fox. "It seems you have everything you set out to find," it said. "I just have one last warning for you. Do not sit beside a well." And before Mepo could thank it, the fox ran off. Soon they arrived near the town that celebrated the harvest and met the two men who had once tried to guard the golden tree. They were held in stocks, and a crowd had gathered around them, yelling and throwing rotten fruit at their faces. Mepo approached a villager and asked what was going on. "These men are accused of dishonesty and debauchery. Every night they drank themselves into a stupor and caused trouble in the inn where they were staying." Mepo approached the guard and paid for their release from his pouch of gold, and quickly ushered the two men out of the village. At last, when the town was out of sight and the group of travelers stopped on the side of the road, the two men thanked Mepo for his kindness. They stared in amazement at the treasures he carried. "You must be tired from such a long journey," one of them said kindly. "Come rest beside this well, and I will draw some water for you." Mepo sat down to drink, but greed had already grown in the two men's hearts. As Mepo sat on the side of the well, the two strangers pushed him in and hurried away with the golden bird, the golden horse, and the princess. Fortunately, the well had been dry, and Mepo landed on soft mud. From the bottom of the well, Mepo called for help. After a short while, the fox appeared at the opening. "You did not listen and sat beside the well," scolded the fox. "Greed often leads people to betray others." The fox lowered its tail and helped Mepo climb out. Together they hurried down the road after the two men. Before long, they reached the valley where the strangers were proudly showing the treasures to the old man. Yet the golden bird would not sing for them. The golden horse refused to move, and the princess said nothing and only wept. As soon as Mepo arrived, the bird began to sing sweetly. The horse bowed its shining head, and the princess smiled with joy. At once the truth became clear. The old man's face grew stern. "These men tried to steal what they did not earn," he said. He called for the town guards, and the two men were taken away. Mepo left the golden bird with the old man as promised, but the golden horse and princess would not part from him. Later, as Mepo prepared to continue his journey, the fox appeared beside him one last time. "You have completed everything you had set out to do," the fox started. "Yes, and it is all thanks to you, dear fox," Mepo replied. The fox smiled. I would have one last task for you. Anything, Mepo exclaimed. You have saved me time and time again, and I know not how I shall ever repay you. You must kill me, the fox replied. Mepo stepped back in shock. I cannot do that. You must, said the fox calmly. I am forbidden to say more. After a long silence, Mepo finally trusted the fox, as it had always been right, and guided him through every danger. He took out his knife and did as it asked. The fox made no sound, nor did it thrash. It merely closed its eyes. Then, at once, the fox vanished in a flash of light. In its place stood a handsome young man, adorned in royal attire and a crown upon his head. The princess widened her eyes and ran forward with joy. My brother, she cried. The young man smiled. I was placed under a spell long ago by a witch. Only when someone trusted me enough to follow my final request could I be freed. Mepo's mouth hung open in amazement. So what you had me tell the princess in her chambers that night was not a lie. Her brother truly did tell her to follow me. The kingdom thought him dead, but I knew he was alive, the princess exclaimed with tears in her eyes. The brother and sister bid farewell to Mepo and soon returned home together upon the golden horse. Mepo waited until they disappeared beyond the horizon, turned around, and continued along the dirt road, wandering onward toward whatever new adventure might lie beyond the next hill. Along this particular journey, he had learned very valuable lessons. Shining things often tempt us away from wisdom. Greed may lead to betrayal, but patience, kindness, and listening to good advice can carry a traveler far farther than gold. Thank you for watching. If you like tales like these, make sure you give it a like and subscribe. I post new tales weekly.